Hi, and welcome to how I do the thing that I do. Welcome to this very long-awaited tutorial video because a lot of you are actually very curious about how I draw and how I do things. Like, very curious. I didn't know there would be so many people who liked my art style this much. I mean, there's like more than 100,000 of you, so I'm very flattered, thank you. I've been putting off the idea of a tutorial video for a while now because I don't want to tell people how to draw. And frankly, I've never done this, so I think I'm pretty bad at telling people how to do things. So instead of getting a tutorial video where I break down anatomy, proportions, color theory, I'll just be going over briefly on how I draw and maybe make little dedicated videos in the future to tackle a smaller topic that people are still curious on. Okay, hope this video helps, let's get on with it. So for the device, I use a Wacom Cintiq 16. It's a little bit expensive and you can definitely get cheaper alternatives, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. And for drawing, I primarily use Clip Studio Paint, but sometimes I like to alter it to Paint Tool SI. You need to pay for both of these programs, so if you don't have that kind of money, then I can also recommend Krita as a very, very good alternative. I've drawn with all of these programs for about 6 years, so all of them are recommended by me. And as for recording my videos, I use a laptop and my Blue Snowball microphone. The editing program doesn't really matter as long as you can put videos in there and crop it and stuff. I use Adobe Premiere Pro, but you know, CapCut works just fine. Now with all the technical stuff out of the way, let's get on to drawing. Okay, you probably heard this from every single artist, but the first step is always to gather some references. Getting references definitely helps you visualize the drawing that you want to make because, I don't know if you know this, but drawing from your imagination isn't always easy. References don't necessarily need to be on Pinterest, like, for example, I have this one I got off of Google. It's just, Pinterest is a good place to find images. And now I want to be able to see and organize all of these all in one place, which is why I use and I would like to present to all of you Milanote, which just so happened to also want to sponsor me. This is literally the perfect tool for creatives like us to organize our ideas. I can add notes, images, colors, arrows? Yeah, arrows. I feel like a little detective now. This app even lets you draw on top of your images. That's how cool it is. You can move an image around, change the size of it, crop it, and just make what's essentially a digital bulletin board that visually makes sense to you. I actually used Milanote to compile the ending of my last video, so you get all of your cool avatars in one place. If you happen to be using Milanote on PC, you can also use their web clipper. You can gather and save images from all over the internet onto your board with just one click. All you need to do is download the extension from your preferred browser, find yourself an image like this one, and a little pop-up should just be there. Press save, select the one that you want to save it to, go here, and then when you open up Milanote, it'll be right there. Just plop it onto your board and do whatever the heck you want with it. Nowadays, I find myself constantly using Milanote whenever I browse through the internet. I use Pinterest and Twitter a lot, so it's where my images mostly come from. It's really great to have a nice and quick option to save images directly onto your reference board. What's awesome about the web clipper is that it gives you the direct link back to the original place where you got it from. That way, if you want to see more of a certain artist that you like, you can always just click the link and it'll take you right back there. Nowadays, I constantly use it. For example, the board that you just saw me assembling, I was able to draw this with it. Now, I might hear you saying, but what if I am broke and I don't have enough money to afford fancy apps? And also, you're really cool and really awesome. Well, don't worry, because you can use Milanote with the price of nothing. There's no price, you can use this thing for free. I've been using Milanote since around February of this year, so it was really surprising and also I'm really honored that they went over to sponsor me. Milanote is Orb endorsed. You can sign up for Milanote today by clicking the link in the description or checking out the pinned comment. That's milanote.com/orb. Again, milanote.com/orb. Okay, how do I start one of these? So, as like a really important thing, I personally like to always have a bottle of water with me because we'll start drawing and then we'll just sit there for 12 hours straight. You have your nice and dandy reference board here, you can just put that to the side. You can minimize it, open it up, minimize it, open it up. Whatever is more comfortable to you. I like to use brushes that have pressure sensitivity, which means that if I press really lightly, the brush strokes are really thin and also really light. And when I press really heavily, the lines get heavier and also the opacity is higher. It gets darker, basically. And a lot of the times for shading, I like to use this grainy brush, or I like to use this little watercolor brush. I got this one off of the Clip Studio Paint asset store, and then you can find this one in the default brush pack. Here's one of the drawings that I've done beforehand, if this is a commission. You'll see that if I zoom in, you can see a texture is being applied right there. There's watercolor right there. But yeah, I know it seems like I have a lot of them here, but honestly, a lot of them do the exact same thing. like these two. You can hardly tell a difference with these two. It's just that this one offers you, I guess, like a bit softer edge to it. And then say these two. And for example, these two, the texture is basically the same. It's just that this one protrudes outwards, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Probably. And then I just like to start sketching my drawing. Here we got the torso, arms. We're gonna redo these laces. Hang on. I still struggle a bit with, say, like fabric, but I like to use this triangular shape for a lot of them. For my character specifically, I use a circle, but people tend to have more ovally shape for their head. Or now you can simplify it to just be an oval. Unless you're doing some sort of chibi-esque style, then faces are usually never a circle. They're usually more like ovals. Maybe I'll get more into proportions in another video, but this one's about my art process, not about how I break down things. But if you want a more simplified version of the body, the head, in this case, which would be a sphere, egg, oval, or torso, then we have more of like the pelvic area, which just kind of looks like a holder for an egg. I guess this is the simplified way of me breaking down my anatomy. If you want to simplify even more, then you have the head, the neck, and you get even more nubs for the hands. That's just the way I do things. I don't know, it's probably different for everyone. And now once I have the sketch done, I go straight into line art. I'll be painting over the line art later, so I don't really focus too much on it, per se. I think line art's probably the most relaxing part of this whole thing. Yay! And once you have the line art done, you can basically just start coloring this whole thing. I can essentially color these parts in because, well, yeah. And then I'll apply the base colors to this drawing. So as of now, we just went from this to this. Now we can apply shading, which is also my favorite part. You don't really need to be clean. I like to be a little bit messy. I got no perfectionism when it comes to coloring. I just like using colors. As long as the colors look good alongside each other, then I will use it. If picking colors tend to be a bit hard for you, then you can go on Adobe Color, which is a free website that you can just search up, and you can generate a lot of color palettes from there. It's really very intuitive. I like to go in with a darker color, and then we switch back to a lighter one. I also like to color above the line art layer. It gives it more of like a watercolor painterly-esque style to it, like coloring above the line art, like say right here. Where else did I do it? Right there. There's another one right there. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. What I like to do afterwards is I'll add a clipping layer above all of these. And what that essentially lets me do is just color or apply whatever I want with the drawing below as like the reference or selection. This way I don't really need to worry about the color going past the character. I like to put a lot of hatching in my art. It's a very satisfying thing for just me to do. So we're gonna repeat what we did earlier with the shading and just do it even more. If you want to try even harder, you can also apply a darker color inside the light colors and then repeat and do how many layers of that as you want. And if you think that maybe this isn't colorful enough, then you can always add a new layer, set it to overlay, which is like a little filter thing, I guess. And if you give that layer an entire shade of blue, it'll give you this really cool effect. You can do it with a lot of colors, like here's how it looks like with like this neon green, here's how it looks like with blue, here's how it looks like with purple, here's how it looks like with red. Just experiment and see which one looks best with your drawing. I'm gonna make mine blue. I'm gonna have the opacity at like 30%. And here's like the before and after. Very subtle difference, but it looks cool. And this is essentially the process that I use for all of my drawings. Yeah. Now, if you've been on my streams very often, then you know that I usually end up with a huge page of assorted drawings, which is essentially what I like to call a doodle page. And for this next section, I am going to do exactly that. I'm gonna draw a huge doodle page with orb. By the end of this video, you can probably expect to have something like this, like this, like this. I tend to use blue for all of my sketches. I just think that it looks nicer than black. I sometimes vary between, like, say, green, purple, all of those. Remember that it's a drawing, so you can always go back and change things that you don't want to add. Because what's the drawback of drawing something in your mind that you think looks cool? I mean, if you don't like it, the worst you can do is erase it. You get double points, by the way, if you know where these poses are from. What are double points for, you ask? Well, just realized we're missing a finger here. There we go. If you have an OC, especially, these doodle pages will work wonders for you. I don't really take these too seriously, I just I draw whatever I want to draw that's on my mind. A tip from me is to always flip your canvas because you'll realize that some proportions look wonky even without realizing it. Just like how this circle is slightly slanted, so we're gonna move it down by a little bit. I think this is kind of obvious, but it also doesn't need to be one character. I like to take this chance and draw some of my friends too. So you get triple points if you know who these are. I can add like a small one right here. I don't really take these too seriously. It's really fun to just dump your ideas out onto a piece of paper. It's got its own charm to it, in my opinion. Maybe it's a little bit too messy for some people. Remember that's a drawing, and that you can always go back and change something if you want to. You reach a point in the middle of drawing where you just kind of zoom out and realize like, wow, everything looks really cool. And that is one of the most satisfying feelings that you can feel. Hey, post-editing me, I'm just gonna talk over this footage. For doodle pages, I don't usually have a line art size, so you can see that everything's kind of at the same brush size. There's not really any volume to it. And this is really like a almost meditatory process for me because I kind of just do this while my brain is turned off. Yeah, woo! And now we can just fill in the lines with a paint bucket. So for the inside of my hoodie, I usually, instead of using a darker shade of red, I like to use blue. Just like that. There's certain areas where I need to color in white, and during those times, I'm actually going to make the background of this drawing gray. This way, it's a lot easier for me to tell if I ever miss any spots, and yeah. Okay, we can make the background white again. I'm just gonna add the faces onto all of these. Okay, and as for the background, I like to just grab some sort of soft brush and kind of just draw along all of the empty spaces. I'm also gonna take some time to start shading this art piece and also add some highlights to it. I'm actually gonna redo the background a little bit. I'm gonna add to this border right here what's meant to be flowers. And of course, in the end, I always try to hide my little signature in the drawing. Yay! I get to see all of these cool drawings in one place. And now you got yourself an awesome doodle page, which also are really good for OC references. And now, alas, you have reached the ending of this video. If you're here, hi, thank you. Take a brownie. Hopefully I made this video short, but just enough detail so that you guys can get an understanding of how I do things. It was very fun to share a lot of these things, so thank you. I wanted to make this video a lot earlier than I ended up making this for like 100k, and if we look at my channel now, I might be just, you know, a little bit late to that idea with 190k. You know what idea I won't be late to though? Drawing VR chat characters part 2. I didn't really expect people to want a part 2 because I just said if 5 or 10 people want me to make another one, I'll just do it because it was really fun. And as of recording this now, there's 1,000 comments and almost a quarter of them was asking for a part 2, meaning 250 requests. And also thank you so much obviously to Milanote for stepping out of their way to sponsor me. It was just an app that I constantly used before, so it was very flattering, very nice. I forgot if I said this already, but I know summer started for a lot of people, so happy summer break for everyone. And to all of my viewers in the Southern Hemisphere, happy winter break, which I think a few people would be on right now. Honestly, as fun as this video was to make, I feel like there's a lot more things that I can get into. I felt like I didn't explain enough, but at the same time, there isn't really that much that goes into my art process, so I'm not really sure what I'm looking for. If that thing that I'm looking for pops up in the future, then I'll let everyone know. I'll let everyone know. Okay, take care everyone. Goodbye. Bye. Bye. Bye.